we have won. Glory to their bravery, whose blood waters our freedom. We give our love and loyalty, together in unity, contrasting beautiful Namibia, Namibia, our country, beloved land of savannas, hold high the banner of liberty, Namibia, our country, Namibia, motherland, we love thee. Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the star, let us make Africa the tree of life.
Thank you. Please be seated. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone following these proceedings right now. Welcome to the World Press Freedom Conference taking place in Windhoek, Namibia, the birthplace, some would say, of this very occasion, starting from 1991, when a very important and historic seminar took place here in Windhoek. And my name is Toivo Ndjebela. I am a co-champion of this year's World Press Freedom Day, of course, together with my lovely co-champion here, Gwen, who was part of that historic mission, 1991. She co-chaired the proceedings that birthed the Windhoek Declaration. Gwen, how are you today?
Thank you, Toivo. And we're also very pleased to have with us here on stage today the Prime Minister of Namibia, the Right Honourable Sarah Nadjila Kuugongelwa-Amadhila, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Namibia, I should say, as well as the Director General of UNESCO, Audrey Azoulay. Good afternoon to you both, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm now going to actually ask, almost straight away, Dr. Peya Mushelenga, who is Namibia's Minister of Information and Communication, to say his welcome words, if he's got 3 minutes. Also, as he goes up, to mention that Dr. Mushelenga was also co-chair of the steering committee which put together this World Press Freedom Day, along with UNESCO's local representative, Jafar Musa El Kadum. Thank you very much, Dr. Mushelenga. Please go ahead.
Ceremonies. Right Honourable Saara Kuugongelwa-Amadhila, Prime Minister of the Republic of Namibia, Excellency Madam Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, all protocol observed. It is my singular honor and privilege to welcome you all to this 2021 landmark global conference of the World Press Freedom Day. As I welcome you, allow me to extend a special word of thanks and welcome to all our international guests who have braved the coronavirus storm and crisscrossed multiple borders from afar to join us in making this day. Your physical presence at this event today, notwithstanding the traveling challenge and threats by the pandemic, demonstrates the significance of press freedom, its independence, pluralism, and many other ideals that this conference advocates. I'm also pleased to welcome the national guests who travel from outside the capital city and our audience that are tuned in virtual platforms from across the globe. It is my hope that our deliberations at this conference will culminate and set a precedent of a freer press and better working environment for our journalists to do their work without fear and adverse demonstration, muzzling, or threat of any sorts, and that information as a public good is relayed to those who need it the most, our citizenry. Ladies and gentlemen, as a Minister of Information and Communications Technology in Namibia, as well as the custodian of media freedom in the country, I want to emphatically highlight the importance of a good and symbiotic relationship between the government, media as a fourth estate, as well as public and private institutions. A good working relationship between the media and governments provides for an informed citizenry that can partake in the country's economic activities to propel sustainable economic development. Since Namibia journalists enjoy a relatively good working environment, as testified by Namibia's first place ranking in terms of press freedom in Africa, we join the community of other nations to call upon governments and countries where press freedom is suppressed and where journalists are threatened for carrying out their work to change course and harness the benefits of press freedom. We stand in solidarity with those journalists that face untenable and banal threats, either online or in person, daily across the globe. In conclusion, I once again welcome you all and believe that you will find arrangements put to your disposal useful to conduct fruitful deliberations. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peya Mushelenga, Namibia's Minister of Information and Communication Technology, for your wonderful and warm welcome to the guests. We will just play a short, nice, beautiful video from the Namibia's Ministry of Information and Communication Technology for our audience, and then we proceed with the program. Thank you.
Beautiful Namibia. How we wish that all these delegates online, so many thousands, were able to join us here in Namibia were it not for the COVID pandemic. So we hope next time we're going to get that right. In the meantime, I'd like to once again warmly greet our Prime Minister, Kuugongelwa-Amadhila, and also Madame Azoulay for joining us here today. But also a very big thanks to everybody joining us around the world virtually. And there are, as I've already mentioned, a few thousand people online. It is such an honor for me to be at the opening of the 2021 World Press Freedom Conference, 30 years after the historic Windhoek Declaration, which brought about so much change for the African continent and even further afield. That was, as everybody knows, a meeting organized by UNESCO and partners, including 63 journalists from 38 countries in Africa who got together to promote the theme of promoting an independent, free and pluralistic African press. So I think we are now going to see a video to remind us of how it started back then, with some of the testimonies, among others, of Alain Modou, who was then the UNESCO Assistant Director General and one of the driving forces behind that landmark 1991 declaration. Please cue the video.
It was exactly on the 9th of November, 1989, and exactly that day happened something unbelievable, the fall of the Berlin Wall. Big professional media organizations challenged me, and in fact I was new at UNESCO. I just arrived in Paris a few months, more precisely, a few months before the general conference. And they challenged me and they said, Alan, now the UNESCO has a new communication policy. Are you ready to organize a meeting with journalists from Eastern Europe who fought against their own government, who are not part of the party or the state media, and even some of them were in the underground press, working for the underground press? I said, well, I take up the challenge. And it was a very strange meeting, because for the first time we had at UNESCO a group of people who were, let's call it, not the friends of, not to say enemy, but not the friends of the governments. And the Director General decided to make available the room where normally the Executive Board of UNESCO is meeting. It's a big circle, and you had all the journalists on the seats in front, and behind the diplomatic representatives. The diplomats, it was very moving, very emotional, of course. The journalists gave very interesting testimonies about their daily life. So at the end, African diplomats came to me and said, but Mr. Modou, it was fantastic, this meeting. Do you think that democracy is just for the Europeans, or do you think that we can have it in Africa? It would be appropriate to have such a meeting in Africa. I said, well, yes, I'm ready to submit the idea to the Director General, Mr. Mayor, and we will organize it. And this is how it started.
When I received the invitation, the theme, Seminar on Promoting an Independent and Pluralistic African Press, sounded very exciting to me, because especially at that time in Africa and in Ghana, the press operated in quite a hostile environment.
I can't tell you what an amazing experience it was at the time to meet journalists from across the African continent, because don't forget, we were under apartheid rule until a year before that, and our movability, if you like, around the continent was almost impossible for us to have that sort of connection with our compatriots in different parts of Africa.
I co-founded a weekly newspaper together with a friend. The paper was The Monitor, and we came out 1st September 1989. And it was a hard time, hard going. So many impediments were put in our way, and eventually the paper collapsed.
A lot of the stories that people told at the conference were horror stories of journalist experiences in the African context, who were either jailed or harassed or had their newspapers burned down.
So The Monitor was considered an enemy newspaper by the government, so they wouldn't help us. So that was another reason why the paper could not survive.
That a number of the journalists who were invited to come were in jail at the time. And so due to Alain Moudou and of course the then Director General of UNESCO, Frederico Mayor, they managed to secure the release of, among others, Pius Ndjebela himself, to be able to travel to Windhoek to attend this seminar.
In fact, apart from the state-owned media, which had the 4 main papers, all the independent papers were mostly sports or lottery newspapers, and they were four pages, as I recall.
Whether it was Pius Ndjebela or anybody else, these people I'd heard about and met for the first time. So that was absolutely just a wonderful experience that I think can't be underestimated.
What wonderful memories there, Gwen, with your friends. Just going back into memory lane and seeing all these beautiful faces and everybody recalling exactly what transpired must be something surreal to you.
Absolutely, and remembering all the stories of, as I say, as the Ghanaian journalist indicated, of hardship across the continent, and so happy that that declaration was able to pave the way for a more free and independent environment for media on the continent.
Indeed. And it was those events that led, of course, to the United Nations eventually in 1993 adopting the World Press Freedom Day. And that is what is congregating us here today in Windhoek. And it's such a delight to celebrate it today with those that are in this room, and of course also those that are following online. We are told that about 3,000 people have registered to attend this conference online, and that is very beautiful. We hope that you have been enjoying the pre-conferences that have taken place so far since last Thursday.
Thanks for that, Toivo. And also, not to forget to everyone here and out there, virtual and in reality, that the hashtag World Press Freedom Day is there. Please write about whatever you want to do with press freedom. We really need to hear those views and about our conference. Next up is another champion of press freedom, and that is Mr. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General. And he's going to give us a message today, of course, virtually. So we look forward to hearing what he has to say. Please cue the video.
Societies. During the pandemic and in other crises, including the climate emergency, journalists and media workers help us navigate a fast-changing and often overwhelming landscape of information, while addressing dangerous inaccuracies and falsehoods. In too many countries, they run great personal risk, including new restrictions, censorship, abuse, harassment, detention, and even death, simply for doing their jobs. And the situation continues to worsen. The economic impact of the pandemic has hit many media outlets hard, threatening their very survival. As budget tightens, so too does access to reliable information. Rumors, falsehoods, and extreme or divisive opinions surge in to fill the gap. I urge all governments to do everything in their power to support a free, independent, and diverse media. Free and independent journalism is our greatest ally in combating misinformation and disinformation. The United Nations Plan of Action on the Safety of Journalists aims to create a safe environment for media workers across the globe because information is a public good. Today, we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration for the Development of a Free, Independent and Pluralistic African Press. Despite dramatic changes in the media over the past 3 decades, the Declaration's urgent call for press freedom and free access to information is as relevant as ever. Let's reflect on its message and renew our efforts to protect media freedom so that information remains a life-saving public good for all.
Thank you very much, Secretary Guterres, for that wonderful message vibrating through the system here in Windhoek, Namibia. We now have, of course, we know by now that this event is co-organized by the government of Namibia together with UNESCO, who have been throughout this journey with us since 1991. So it's a beautiful thing that UNESCO is still very much involved in that. I now have the singular honor of asking the UNESCO Director General, Audrey Azoulay, for her opening remarks. Thank you.
Right Honorable Prime Minister Saara Kuugongelwa-Amadhila, Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, here and online around the world. First, let me tell you how honored and pleased I am to be here in Namibia today to celebrate this anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration 30 years ago. And you saw how important it was, how innovative, courageous it was at the time, and the role it played as well in the political history of the continent and beyond. I'm happy also to be here to celebrate the courage and vision of the African journalists who embodied this declaration, and that includes, of course, our co-champion today, Toivo Ndjebela, and Gwen, who has, as it's been reminded, was herself a crucial part of the adoption of the declaration. In adopting this Windhoek Declaration 30 years ago, the international community affirmed that information was a public good at a time when, as we've seen, it was far from being assured. The three key concepts that were underlined then remain absolutely paramount today, still: independence, freedom, and pluralism. But this anniversary today is not just a reminder of the past. It is a commitment, a collective commitment to take for the future, a commitment to keeping the spirit of the Windhoek Declaration alive. Naturally, this means stepping up our work to keep journalists safe, the first issue affecting press freedom, and an area in which UNESCO leads global efforts through the United Nations Plan of Action. But our latest report on the safety of journalists shows that the situation remains deeply troubling. Over the past 10 years, one journalist has been killed every 4 days, and 17 have already lost their lives in 2021. We also know that now most journalist killings take place in countries that are not experiencing armed conflicts, and 90% of these crimes remain unpunished. We're working together with our member states and civil society around the globe to better protect journalists. First, by helping to monitor the situation. For example, through a platform for journalist safety in Africa that we've launched very recently, last January, with the African Union. We're also helping to enhance, to adapt legal frameworks like we've done recently in places like Sudan or Tunisia, among others. We're also now training judges, prosecutors, and judicial actors in general on freedom of expression. 18,000 of them since 2013 in Africa, in the Arab region, and in Latin America. Our new global online course for the judiciary with Oxford University will be getting soon underway to help protect journalists worldwide. More than 2,000 judges across the world have already enrolled so far. But the physical safety of journalists is not, and by far, our only concern. Online harassment is a growing issue, and women are the primary targets. Online harassment, according to a new UNESCO report, which we've just released shows that it's an issue for 3/4 of all women journalists that have already experienced violence online. Our report details the many terrible and new forms of this harassment, including analyzing over 2.5 million social media posts directed at two among the most targeted women journalists. This avalanche of abuse is not only damaging their situation, but is also a very strong contribution to undercut public trust in journalism. This brings us to one of the issues of our conference this year, the issue of social media responsibility. The digital revolution, which began in the 1990s, has given visibility to an extraordinary variety of voices and viewpoints. But it has also created new challenges. Responding to these challenges is precisely the aim of this new Windhoek conference as we look towards a new declaration 30 years after the first. This first challenge is ethical, the need for more transparency and accountability from the global online platforms that shape information today. While these platforms may not create content themselves, they have enormous power over what is seen, what is read, what is heard, and what is shared. It has become a question of democracy because it affects the very foundation of public debates. For much of the population, these platforms have become the dominant source of information, despite being echo chambers for rumors, sometimes hate speech, and conspiracy theories. A 2019 study by the MIT showed that falsehoods are 70% more likely to be shared than verified information and spread up to 6 times faster. We must demand greater transparency of these platforms, transparency about their processes to moderate and curate content moderation, transparency about their algorithm, transparency about data collection and use, transparency about the measures they take to fight misinformation and hate speech. UNESCO stands ready to lead this debate to better regulate these platforms in line with international standards on freedom of expression. For several months, we've been carrying out several consultations, including with major platforms themselves, to define general principles for transparency. These principles, published at this conference, are, we believe, a first step in this global conversation and in developing new global standards. The second challenge I would like to mention is people's growing susceptibility to rumors and false news. It is not enough just to have access to information. We must also be able to assess it, each one of us, to assess it critically. And therefore, media and information literacy has become one of the most essential skills for the 21st century. This is why we, at UNESCO, overhauled our media and information literacy curriculum that we just launched last month in Serbia. A curriculum which aims to give learners worldwide the resources they need to address recent technological development in the distribution of information, like artificial intelligence, but also deepfakes. In these critical times, we need more than ever critical thinking. The third and final challenge I would like to mention is the economic crisis befalling independent journalism. It's something we must take very seriously. Media saw their business models upended by the digital transformation, but they are now being hit very hard by the health and economic crisis, and it's especially true for independent media. Nearly 90% of all media have lost revenue because of the pandemic. UNESCO, in partnership with the World Association of News Publishers, is now carrying out research to document these existential risks to the viability of news media and propose new financing and investment models while also always preserving editorial independence. These 3 themes of our 2021 World Press Freedom Conference, transparency of platforms, media viability and education, media and information education, reflect the issues affecting information in the 21st century, its production, dissemination, and reception. We must address these issues together if we are to make information a true public good. And it's been said, but I want to say it again, there is no better place to do so than here in Windhoek, in this global capital of freedom of expression, including for the many vibrant media that exist here. This country knows the value of freedom. Of course, there is no country which is immune from the challenges I mentioned, but this young republic is the top-ranked African country in the World Press Freedom Index. What a victory this is. And indeed, this commitment to freedom was again demonstrated very recently when the country tabled its first access to information bill, which UNESCO is pleased to be supporting, and also launched the Namibia Media Professional Union. I would like to therefore very warmly thank Namibia, its civil society, but also its government and the President of the Republic of Namibia, His Excellency Dr. Hage Geingob, for their invaluable support for press freedom, for this conference, for UNESCO. The President, I believe, was then Prime Minister when 30 years ago the conference was opened. Can you believe that the Republic was just 1 year old, and this is where history took place. So thank you for being here, being with us, being online with us. Thank you for making this spirit alive still today. And thank you for this inspiration it brings to us. Dapalula, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG, for your wonderful words. Gwen, I thought I saw you nodding throughout the speech of the DG as if you agreed with almost every point that you made.
Well, I think the Director General definitely outlined and articulated very succinctly some of the major challenges facing journalism today, and of course UNESCO's role in some of those challenges, which include obviously the critical issue of journalism safety, the fight for sustainability of independent and good journalism, the disinformation pandemic and what to do about it. And of course, she also addressed the issue of people's receptivity to a lot of the disinformation and media literacy, and how we can use that to help people decipher and, be able to judge the good from the bad, especially on social media. And of course, the three themes of this conference, which include transparency and viability of media. So very important issues, and thank you for that, Director General.
Thank you, Gwen. I now have, again, the privilege to call to the podium the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Namibia, Madam Saara Nadjila Kuugongelwa-Amadhila, to give us her speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, co-directors of ceremonies, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Professor Peter Kachavivi, Honorable Ministers present here and Deputy Ministers, as well as Members of Parliament of the Republic of Namibia, Your Excellency, the Director General of UNESCO, Ms. Audrey Azoulay, Honorable Governor of Commerce Region, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. It is our pleasure and honor as a country to welcome the delegates and participants at this world event marking the 30th anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration and celebrating this year's Press Freedom Day. Some delegates are participating in this conference virtually due to COVID-19 pandemic that has disrupted our lives. We are pleased to host them virtually and look forward to welcoming them physically to Namibia in the future. 30 years ago, African journalists united in their quest for freedom of expression, independent and pluralistic press assembled in our capital, and in fact at this same venue, and adopted the landmark Windhoek Declaration, culminating into the World Press Freedom Day as declared by the United Nations General Assembly on the 3rd of May, 1993. This event, therefore, has historical significance for Namibia, and it is our special honor for us to host it. Namibia has traversed a long journey in areas of freedom of speech and expression, independent and pluralistic media, as well as universal and human rights records since our independence in 1990. We are ranked as the country with the freest press in Africa and 24th in the world out of 180 countries in the latest Press Freedom Index by the Reporters Without Borders. Namibia has held this first position in press freedom in Africa since 2013, except in 2018 when we came second to Ghana. The rights and freedoms of the citizens and residents of Namibia are guaranteed in the Constitution, which entrenches a Bill of Rights encompassing the freedom of the press and other media. Over the past 31 years of our independence, no journalist or media practitioner or any resident of this country has been threatened, ganged, imprisoned, tortured, or killed in Namibia for any reason. I therefore take this opportunity to unreservedly reaffirm the Namibian government's commitment to press freedom as expressed in our Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's event is being observed under the theme of information as a public good. With the advent of social media and other information technologies that characterize the internet age of instant dissemination of information, it requires of the media to be more circumspect by analyzing and giving perspective to the floating information to ensure that it is reliable and ready for public consumption. Meaningful and factual information remains the pulse of any democracy and good governance. Ladies and gentlemen, when he took office in 2015, President Hage Geingob declared war on poverty. Fighting poverty does not only comprise of distributing economic resources to the impoverished communities, but also includes provision of quality information to the people at the grassroots level of society to afford them an opportunity to meaningfully participate in the social and political spheres of the country. We have recently concluded the Harambe Prosperity Plan 2, an action plan of the Namibian government towards economic recovery and inclusive growth. The plan prioritizes the implementation of targeted policy programs to enhance service delivery, contribute to economic recovery and engender inclusive growth, and poise Namibia to respond to domestic and global socio-economic challenges and opportunities during and after COVID-19 pandemic. The government also unveiled the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, which aims to promote, attract, and retain both domestic and foreign investments. The board is tasked with the responsibility of developing new investment strategies and explore synergies with the public and private sector to create a conducive investment environment in the country. The government is thus encouraging the media to use its media freedom power responsibly and support the efforts of government to improve the living standards of the people. We know that we attract what we celebrate the most. As we celebrate World Press Freedom Day today, let us think of how media professionals can help with nation building and contribute to economic growth and prosperity for all. In modern times, the media exude enormous power of serving as a valuable forum for articulating the affairs of the country to the people. However, since the business of the news is time-bound, in some instances, journalists compromise their fact-checking and verification processes resulting in dire damage in a social context. As such, the rights and responsibilities ought to be established to safeguard the integrity of the media. Journalists, therefore, have to remain loyal to the public by prioritizing the public interest before their own personal beliefs and quest for profit-making. And I am very happy to hear what the Director General of UNESCO has said in terms of the capacity-building efforts that are being pursued by the organization to assist the media fraternity and other stakeholders in development to optimize their interaction in the manner that is going to optimize the welfare of our communities. In turn, as a government accountable to the people, we will ensure that the public has convenient access to public information they need to make informed decisions. And we are very grateful for the acknowledgement of the efforts that we are making in this regard as a country, including through the introduction of the Access to Information Bill in our Parliament. With these few words, ladies and gentlemen, I now declare the 2021 World Press Freedom Day and the Windhoek Declaration's 30th Anniversary Commemorative Conference officially open. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Prime Minister Saara Nadjila Kuugongelwa-Amadhila, for your very your beautiful message, and Gwen, for me, what stood out for me from the Prime Minister's message is, of course, as a practicing journalist in Namibia, the reaffirmation of government's commitment to press freedom, and of course also the reminder from her that we do our job responsibly, especially in a world filled with so much fake news and everything. Yeah. What was your impression?
Yes, I think exactly, very important that the government has recommitted itself to press freedom. These are always very encouraging words to hear, so we're very thrilled about that. And of course, the Prime Minister also spoke of Namibia's place in press freedom in Africa and further afield, something we can probably, the President has been on record before, hoping we'll improve our global position and global standing. So that's the next step. And maybe, hopefully, an access to information law will become a reality, and that will help us to get there.
Definitely. So now that the global conference of this important subject of press freedom has been officially opened by the Prime Minister, it's time to dance a little bit. We have a performance lined up from Diolini. And while they are giving us that piece of art, may I then ask the Prime Minister and the Director General to just move into their reserved seat there. Thank you very much. Diolini, please give us your...
Bye.
Thank you, Diolini, for that beautiful piece of art. It's sang in Kwekwehovab, one of the local vernaculars here in Namibia. The message can always be communicated later as to what was being sang about, but it's all love and peace. I now have a few messages lined up. Let me start by introducing Ambassador Salah Hamad, head of the African Governance Architecture Secretariat at the African Union. Yes, thank you.
Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Namibia, Your Excellency Director General of UNESCO, Excellencies, Ministers of the Government of the Republic of Namibia, Honorable Members of the Parliament of the Republic of Namibia, Excellencies, Ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished journalists, representatives of civil society organizations, members of the media and academia, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly and respectfully observed. I bring you greetings from His Excellency, Mr. Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, as we celebrate the World Press Freedom Day 2021 under the theme Information as a Public Good here in Windhoek, Namibia, where the historic 1991 Windhoek Declaration for the Development of Free, Independent and Pluralistic Press was drafted and adopted. On the onset, I wish to begin by thanking His Excellency the President of the Republic of Namibia, Her Excellency the Right Honorable Prime Minister and her government, and the people of Namibia for hosting this landmark occasion here in this very, very beautiful city of Windhoek. I also wish to pay tribute, in fact, a special tribute, to the Director General of UNESCO and her staff for the role they continue to play in advocating for the freedom of expression, access to information, and the safety and protection of journalists from the adoption of the landmark Windhoek Declaration of 1991 to date. I also wish, on behalf of His Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, to recognize our own African Union Commission on Human and People's Rights and the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and Access to Information for the hard work that they've been doing with the support of UNESCO to advocate for freedom of information and freedom and access to information on the continent. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, information as a public good is a public good. And certainly it is also a human right that is enshrined in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and many other African Union shared values and instruments. This right cannot be enjoyed without ensuring access to information as well as the safety and protection of journalists who are playing an essential role in enabling participatory democracy globally and particularly in Africa. Journalists, through dissemination of information, can facilitate citizen participation in public decision-making and also in expressing their views freely and without any violations of rights. Therefore, journalism is not only important for information sharing, but also for participation, accountability, and good governance and democracy. The right to information as an African shared values is enshrined in many African Union instruments, but mainly in the Constitutive Act of 2000, which emphasized the need to promote and protect the rights and protect human rights on the continent. In fact, Article 9 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights provides that every individual shall have the right to receive information. This, in addition to Aspiration 3 of Agenda 2063, the blueprint for the development of Africa, of the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, in conclusion, the African Union reiterates its commitment to promote the right of access to information in this digital age. It is also the African Union Commission's expectation that this event taking place in this great city of Windhoek, the birthplace of access to information declaration, will avail a platform for the adoption of a robust and well-crafted standards that will support the advocacy for the promotion of access to information as well as the safety and protection of journalists in accordance with norms and standards of the African shared values and instruments. On behalf of His Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and the entire family members of the African Union Commission, I wish to once again express our gratitude and appreciation to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Namibia, and the Honorable Right Prime Minister and her government and the people of Namibia for hosting us and hosting this event, and also to the leadership and staff of UNESCO for organizing this important celebration. Let us collectively work together to promote information as a public good. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Hamad, for your beautiful message and the reassurance of commitment from the African Union level. So we appreciate your message, sir. I am told, before I introduce the next item, that the Right Honorable Prime Minister and the DG are at liberty to leave should they wish to do so. But otherwise, we are happy to have you here still. Okay, so as we know, this is a hybrid event where we have physical attendance and virtual attendance, and it is in line with that now we are going to introduce again some online messages from ministers across the world as far as press freedom is concerned. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am delighted to be speaking to you today, albeit at a distance. And thank you, Namibia and UNESCO, for hosting the World Press Freedom Conference. Timothy was in his car with his girlfriend when he was blinded by the lights of a vehicle. At first, he had no idea what was going on. But when the vehicle got closer, he saw it was a digger coming straight at them. After their car had been shunted 10 meters backwards, men with steel pipes began hammering on the car. Paralyzed with fear, Timothy then saw the digger driving towards them at full throttle. It tipped their car over into a ditch, where it landed upside down. It sounds like a scene from a horror film, one that gives you the shivers and keeps you awake at night. Yet this is not fiction. Timothy is a Dutch press photographer who was responding to a call to capture a news story on film. He was attacked 2 weeks ago simply for doing his job. And while Timothy and his girlfriend survived and the perpetrators are being prosecuted, something fundamental was damaged: our free press. The right to record, write and communicate without fear. And this is just one example, a small one at that. Unfortunately, more gruesome and fundamental attacks on press freedom are taking place all over the world. I'm talking about murder, imprisonment, and impunity, continuous threats from authorities. And even as the safety of journalists is declining worldwide, and online harassment against female reporters is on the rise, some politicians are harming them further with anti-media rhetoric. In this harsh reality, we must embrace positive forces, like those set in motion by the unflinching African journalists who drew up the Windhoek Declaration 30 years ago. Their historic call for media freedom has persuaded countries to adopt laws that guarantee the right to information, to ensure attacks on journalists do not go unpunished, and to push for the development of diverse and independent media. Namibia itself is an example of a positive force, protecting and advancing freedom of the press. Thanks to our partnership, the Human Rights Council confirmed in July last year that freedom of expression and access to information are essential for the protection of other human rights, for democracy, and for a sustainable world. Last December, during the World Press Freedom Conference hosted by the Netherlands, almost 60 countries pledged to investigate and prosecute all attacks on journalists. The Netherlands also announced that it would give an extra 9 million euros to projects that enhance the safety of journalists. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot allow sticks and stones to break the bones of free speech and writing. Let's continue to join positive forces. Let's work together so that journalists can do their work without fear. Thank you.
On the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration for the Development of a Free, Independent and Pluralistic Press, I would like to pay a special tribute to all the dedicated and courageous African journalists who were involved in this process. 30 years ago, they met in Windhoek and initiated a declaration on press freedom, which is a landmark up to this day, and which continues to be a catalyst in encouraging press freedom, independent journalism and media pluralism worldwide. If anything, then the COVID pandemic has proven again very clearly to all of us the significance of freedom of press and freedom of expression. Only they can guarantee access to reliable information. And without reliable information, we cannot safeguard public health, ensure accountability, or uphold democracy. We simply cannot fulfill the promises of peace and sustainable development. Thus, by protecting journalism and journalists, by respecting freedom of press and expression, we are actually safeguarding our way of life and even our own physical well-being. Therefore, this must be our priority, now as well as in 10 years. Thank you.
The 30th anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration is a historic milestone. My thanks to Namibia and UNESCO for hosting this year's celebrations. Press freedom keeps societies informed. It lets people access information to protect themselves and their communities. It allows people to recognize problems and hold governments to account. And yet journalists and media outlets face unprecedented pressures, from changing business models to online harassment to violence. Digital technologies and the internet also pose significant challenges. Canada is committed to press freedom. We are taking action through the Human Rights Council, through the Freedom Online Coalition, through the Media Freedom Coalition, and more. Together, let's ensure people can enjoy all of their rights through press freedom and access to information. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, 30th anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration is a great opportunity to reaffirm our commitments to the main principles enshrined in this fundamental document. Access to the information must be universally ensured. Firstly, no journalist or other media worker must live in fear of reprisals against them. Most importantly, including danger to their liberties, health, and life. Their activities must not be restricted by economic, political, or any other form of pressure. Secondly, our media must be reliable. We must push back disinformation and propaganda. I'm using this opportunity to assure that Lithuania stands ready to do its part in promoting safety of journalists, freedom of expression and media freedom, and the right to verified information. Thank you.
The Windhoek Declaration is a landmark document ensuring press freedom around the world. It calls on governments to be proactive in ensuring the protection of journalists and media organisations. And here in the UK, we believe passionately in the principle of a free media. And that's why we joined together with Canada to form the Global Media Freedom Coalition, which we're proud to say now has 47 countries on board. Working together, we're championing media freedom and calling out abuses where and when we see them, most recently in Uganda, China, Belarus and Myanmar. We've mobilised our local diplomatic networks to engage with governments around the world when those abuses of media freedoms take place. We're using our G7 presidency and the Media Freedom Coalition to improve how we coordinate aid spending to support independent media where it's under threat. And we're also very proud to support the Global Media Defence Fund. Media freedom is fundamental to democracy here and around the world. We've got to keep working to protect it. Everyone should have access to the information they need to make informed decisions about their life. That's how democracy works. And it requires strong, robust and an independent media. And that's why we're determined to champion media freedom with our partners around the world, through the Global Media Freedom Coalition and through our presidency of the G7. The media is always changing and adapting. Who knows exactly what it will look like in 10 years from now? But its fundamental role in our society won't change. It will be the same as it was when the first newspapers were printed in the United Kingdom some 300 years ago. Their role is to inform, to give people the ability to discuss and debate the issues of the day freely, to challenge their governments, to make decisions in full possession of the facts. That's why we've all got to defend media freedom, and why here in the UK we're absolutely committed to doing so.
People all over the world are entitled, as of right, to reliable, truthful information. And the people who bring us that information, the journalists and the media workers, are entitled to do their work without fear, without intimidation, without censorship. Press and media has changed dramatically in the 30 years since Windhoek, but the principles remain the same. Let's all recall them on World Press Freedom Day.
Thank you for those beautiful messages from across the world, coming really from a very, very good levels of government. So thank you for that. There is an interactive session coming up now, a very exciting one. But before that, we have a performance from our good friend Jackson Wahengo while everybody is getting prepared for that interactive session. Jackson.
tulongele kumwe ne udafano onyo kontinei ya no shukulu mono shoku kalukifa wokana ketu kadona kakatsa matita kakanda kadona kakateleke matita kalifei awanga wangei na wanga dalile nangolo kadenda we Nkanai longei, wanailonga, nkanailonga, kwatengana wa mkadhona, tulongele kumwe, ne udafano, onyo kontinei, no shukulu mono, shoku kalukifa, landuleni wetu, ngetohenganawa, haino tukanei, ngetohengana Toivo Ndjebela inotukanei ngetohengana Toivo Ndjebela inotukanei shokoholei no ineshunino shokoholei no ineshunino nangoro kadenda kanailonga kwatangena wa mkadhona tulongele kumwe ne udafano onyo kontina no shukulu mono nshaku kalukifa wokana ketu kadona kakatsa matita kakanda kadona kakatelekei matita kalifai hawanga wangei hawanga ndalile nangolo kadenda ngetohenga nato ya Ndjebela inotukanei haitingetohenga nato Toivo Ndjebela inotukanei oshokoholei ineshunino oshokoholei ineshunino nangolo kadenda Thank you.